Joe to help us prep for the season by sharing some of his favorite dry flies. We are very privileged to see Joe tie up a series of dry flies for our trout box for the season. So, Joe, thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Sure. And again, this is going to be fun. Anyone has any questions, feel free to ask Joe some questions as he's going along here. And Joe, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks.
Okay. I sent some tips about fishing dry flies. I hope you got them. And as I looked at it, I realized there were like 4 things I'd really forgotten to tell you that I think is important. They are important. Okay. And so I thought I'd cover that first very briefly. One thing you want to get, dry fly fishing is all about leaders. If you don't have the right leader, you're wasting your time. You can get away with a short leader for salmon with streamers or wet flies, soft tackles, but dry fly leaders really have to fall in little S curves. If the trout picks up the least bit of micro drag, it's over. I mean, you're going to have a hard time catching them. So the thing I recommend is what's called a George Harvey leader. George started the first fly tying college class in the country at Penn State back in 1937. He lived to be, I think, 94, 95. I had the pleasure of talking with him a number of times. And when he first made those leaders, he used hard salt water for the butt, hard salt water leader, and then softer and softer going out to the tippet. But later in his life, he said, the hard tippet is a waste of time. You're far better to tie the whole thing with relatively soft tippet material. And you can buy a tippet leader making kit for maybe $40. It'll last you for 10 years. And you can make them, custom make them. George has a lot of formulas. You can find them on the web, or you can go to Fly Fisher's Paradise in State College, and they actually sell the hand-tied George Harveys. But once you use them for any kind of dry fly fishing, you'll never go back. Okay. Another thing I didn't include, and I should have, because you want to be able to recognize this and know what's going on. Most of you, when you were kids, probably took your hand like this, and when your buddy was walking by the swimming pool, pushed water at him. If you're walking a creek and you suddenly see a trout rise, throwing water out in front, just like you would if you skidded, that's almost always a caddis rise. And the reason for that is when caddis flies hit the top, mayflies will float sometimes for 100 yards, 200 yards. The caddis fly, hop, skip, jump, gone. And the trout know it. So when they're heading through the surface, the trout will push water. Many times they'll come right completely out of the water and down again. So if you see that, you want to put on a caddis, because that's what's going on. Another thing, many people don't know this. I've watched guys and they get terribly frustrated. But if you have a lot of flies I'm sorry, maybe it was just me. If you have a lot of flies on the water, the trout will come up, bloop, and go down. As soon as you see that, especially if you see the bubble, so you know it's the surface rise, count 1, 2, 3, 4. About 7, bloop, he'll come up again. Now, guys don't know that. They'll see a rise, bloop, and they cast. The fly goes right over the trout, and he ignores it. He's not ready to come up again. They get in a rhythm very often when there's a lot of flies, blueing olives especially. If you time it so you know he's coming at about 7, you want your fly in the air about 4, and you want it dropping down about 5, and you want it floating into the window just about the time he's ready to come up. You wouldn't think that make a difference, but trust me, it really does. And the last thing, and this one again if you're new with fly fishing dries, you see a rise, nice, beautiful rise, and a nice $half size bubble coming down. When you see the rise, especially if water is moving, where's the fish? The fish is up here somewhere. By the time you see the rise, it's 3 feet. Taking that rise 2 or 3 feet to come back and finally come to the top. So when guys cast very close to a rise they see, they're actually throwing it behind the fish. Fish can't see it. And the faster the water, I mean, it can be 10 feet in a very fast current. If you see a rise, the trout might be 10 feet up from that. So just remember that if you do see a rise, don't throw behind the fish. That, you know, that could really frustrate you. Now, what I'm going to do tonight, I'll try to tie them bigger than normal so that you can get a better look at what I'm doing. I've tried to pick the ones that I know work, especially in local streams, Cayuga Creek, Factory Brook, Oriskany Creek. Well, Oriskany's a little far, but it's well worth your time. Let me see who else here. The Genesee, the Cohocton, any of these places, these flies will absolutely work. So the first one I'm going to tie is sinfully simple, as I call them, but I'm going to make it bigger than I normally would. I would normally make this fly on about a 14 or 16 or an 18. Tonight I'm going to try it on a 12, only so you can see what I'm doing. But if you do the same thing I'm doing, I assure you, you will catch fish with this one. And that's another thing to know, by the way. If you're fishing a big pool or in a pond, trout sometimes travel in pods. There'll be 6 or 8 fish all kind of moving along. Worst thing you can do is try to force feed them and put a fly right in front of them. The only thing you're going to do is scatter them. What you do is you get a general idea where the direction their heading is, and then go up and throw about 12 feet in front of them. They'll come cruising up, and one of 2 things will happen. One of the guys in the bunch will see the fly, and he'll just peel off as subtly as he can. Okay, and he'll come up, and the only thing is you'll pull it out of his mouth unless you wait to see him turn and then strike. The more likely thing is one guy will see it, and then 2 guys will see it, and then 3 guys will see it, and they'll all head for it. You don't have to worry about hooking them. Just hold on, because the first one that gets there is going to slam it to get the other guys out of the picture. So keep that in mind. If you see trout in a bunch, don't try to throw it right on top of them. You'll never catch them. What I have here is a little bit of antron. It's probably hard to see. You can use gray, you can use brown, you can use copper. I happen to like this sort of it's almost a pale beige, I guess I'd describe it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a layer of thread. And again, you always leave the red zone up there, so you're not going to be running out of space. And the trick with this is to not use a lot of it. What you're trying to do here is imitate the trailing shuck, the skin that's peeling off as the insect is coming through the surface film. And people don't realize that, but when a mayfly tries to come through, it would be like us trying to tear our way through construction plastic. Okay. And actually, if you see some of these photos, you'll see them with their little feet grabbing and pulling themselves through, almost like out of a trap door. Okay. Well, the trout know they're most vulnerable when they're doing that. And so very often, as I put in the tips I sent to you, you'll see bulgers, but no bubble. Now, you can throw dry flies all day and the fish will ignore them because they're taking the emergers just under the surface, and that's why you're seeing the bulge. And this is the pattern you want whenever you're seeing that. I'll do a bluing olive version. And again, I'm making it bigger than I normally would. Normally, I'd make something in about a 16 or an 18. In fact, I often make them with stud hooks, because the little bend even makes a 16 look more like an 18. And you have to pretty much match the size of the merger in question. We'll take something like that. We'll just go forward with it. I'll put a little more on. And again, this is a bluing olive emerger on steroids. I'm making them much bigger than I would, but it's easier for you to see the steps if I make them bigger. So we'll go up like that. That's about right. Okay, now what I'm going to take is CDC, the French Col de Canard, the butt of the duck. It's in translation. Now, many people don't like to fish with CDC. It does catch many trout, but it's kind of fragile in the sense that it will slime up after a fish or two, and so guys get impatient. Not to worry. I don't know if you've ever seen something like this, but this is amadou. Okay, it's just a kind of a bark, actually, and you put the fly in there and you squeeze. And you take it out and it'll suck up much of the moisture. Another great product is frog fanny. It actually comes with a little brush, and it's filled with powder, desiccant it's called. And what you do is when your fly gets a little slimy, just paint it. Make a few false casts, get rid of the excess, and you're ready to fish again. This stuff, and I don't own stock in the company, but Boone makes it. It's called Loxa. All right. This is the only stuff you can use with snowshoe rabbit or with CDC or with any regular hackle. The trick is you got to be very stingy. You use just a smidgen and just rub it in, and that fly will float all day. It's expensive. It's probably $12 a bottle, but worth every penny if you do a lot of dry fly fishing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this CDC feather. It's very hard to see. Maybe I'll hold it over there. You see?
If you hold it right in line with the vise, I can get it close.
How's that? Okay.
Just about.
Okay. It's very delicate. You can see that. Very hard to see. Okay. And the trick to it is you want the concave side up. And I'll exaggerate a little bit, but you tie it out here like this. You make maybe 2 loose wraps and pull until you get it inside the eye. And then some firm wraps like that. And then all you do is you turn it around. Till you have it like that. I'll do that again. So you get the effect. What you have here, you can't see it very well, it's delicate, but you have an emerging wing. Let me do that again. I'll pick another feather. I think this one's too big. Okay. All right, let's try another one. The nice thing about CDC that people don't know, I'll try this one here. Yeah, this is a little darker. You'll see it better too. People don't know about CDC is that you can get it to behave simply by pinching and pulling it. I'll show it to you later with another pattern I tie. But I'm going to put this one here. Again, you can see it's delicate. I take the curved side up. Make one. Oops. Come on. Come on. That doesn't want to behave. There it is. I put it back just inside the eye, like that. Okay, and I pick up all the globules I can. There we go. And this one, by the way, best $5 you can ever spend. Get yourself a lacrosse nail cuticle clipper. Oh, I don't know where I am here.
If you hold it right in the jaws.
There we are. It looks like half a nail clipper. Lacrosse makes the best one for about $5. And if you're cutting wire and stuff like that, there's nothing better. And when you're done with it, you throw it out, you save you $40 scissors. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is going to fold the rest of these back. You can see now we have the outline of an emerging wing. Now, you see all that scruffy stuff? Not to worry. Pinch and pull, pinch and pull. Right? And you don't want to completely make it neat. An emerger, that's why soft tackles work so well. Fish take them for emergers, and many times. And they're all splayed out and sloppy. And that's exactly what the fish is looking for, because the real ones, many of them are getting drowned. They're trying to get through that surface film and they can't make it. You get fancy, you can always clip a few off. But you can see now the clear outline of that wing. You put that in about a 14, you'll tie it on a scud hook in a 14 and it'll look like a 16. Just put it, let it drift down in front of a trout. Watch what happens. Cayuga Creek, they're suckers for this one. Any questions on that? Or
Joe, what dubbing was that? Does that really matter?
not really. What I have is just a little bit of plain old rabbit. I sometimes use the Hairtron, which is a mixture of rabbit and Antron, but it really doesn't make much difference as long as it's a little bit buggy.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the things you want to keep around is a dubbing brush. You can use a 22 gun brush if you want, but these things have a little Velcro and you can just pick out if you want to make it a little more spiky. But I just use plain rabbit. Seems to work as good as anything else. It's sinfully simple.
Mm-hmm.
You can make 20 of them in an hour,
Right.
In half an hour.
Pick your mayfly and change the color, right?
Yep. The bluing olive is terrific. When you see sulfurs, the only thing you do is you can keep this shuck the same color, or you can go to more like a copper color. Put some yellow dubbing and use a piece of yellow CDC, doing exactly the same thing. Put it in by the tips with the curved side up, pull the wing down, tie it off, and you're done. I promise you, you'll catch fish with it.
Cool.
I don't waste my time anymore with things that don't catch fish. Any questions about that one? All right. Let's move on. I brought with me, I can find it here, scattered among them. What's this one? Ah, yes. This is another fly that you just can't be without. I'll tie it in two versions for you because both are very, very important to catching fish. The guy who invented this pattern was a fellow by the name of Fran Bedders. He ran a shop up in the Adirondacks. And the guy who really gave him the idea was a fellow named Bill Phillips. Bill came in one day with a snowshoe rabbit foot. And he threw it in front of Fran and he said, see what you can make with this. And Fran was the one who worked on this a little while, and finally it's called the Usual. And the reason it got its name, it would catch so many fish, guys would come along and say, what are you using? And Fran's answer was, the usual. And so that's how it got its name. Many people tie it in red, but I don't. I tie it in hot orange. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why is something I learned from Gary LaFontaine. I knew Gary for a long time. He's a wonderful man. He died too young. Gary used to sit underwater in the cold Rocky Mountains in scuba gear, filming trout, observing trout. And the one thing he noticed is a lot of mayflies had a pronounced orange cast to them. And when they were pumping their wings up to break through the case, he said the color was a distinct orange. And Fran originally tied it in hot orange. In fact, his other wonderful pattern, if you haven't ever used it, is called a royal wolf. And he liked that spot of hot orange up in the front of it. So what you can do, this is a snowshoe rabbit foot. Okay, get it where you can see it. Now, some guys go nuts and they actually break the toes apart because the straightest hair on the whole foot is right in here in the toes. You can do that if you want. I found I can go right here and it doesn't seem to make a difference. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to take a patch of straight fur, and I'm not going to get rid of the excess. I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to put this on the top, tie it firmly in, and I'm going to go up front. Whoops, I got to take that a little further. I'm going to go up front, and I'm going to tie a little more. Then I'm going to wrap. Oops, I missed that one. Just the way you would if you were making a clink hammer. And what that does is it really stands the wing up. See? Put a few wraps up in front to be safe. And then I go to the back. Now, I go to the same area and I snip off another bunch, not quite as big. I get rid of the underfur, but I save it. That's about right. I take this one, put it up against that one, and I make a tail. And the tail is better if it's actually if it's a little stubby. What I do here is I go over the shank and under the tail, then I go back over the shank, and that's how you lock it so it won't pull loose. Okay? I know it looks like hell. What's that old thing? A decoy has to look like a duck to a duck. This looks like an emerger to a trout, and that's what important. Many of us would be inclined to dismiss it out of hand. Okay, but you want that. You don't want to be crazy about the dubbing, but you want to use that underfur. And as it gets wet, that hot orange color will show through. And I personally believe that's what closes the sale. I remember I fished with Bill Bryant one day. I didn't fish with him. I was telling him about this usual, and I gave him a couple. And I said, you know, Bill, you want to use hot orange thread for the underbody. Well, he didn't have any, so he decided to use yellow. He said, I started down to run with my flies. I caught 4. I walked back to the front. I had lunch. Then I tried your flies and I caught 9. And he said, the only difference was the color. I said, believe me, you know, I'd never thought color made much difference, but over the years, this one, especially when it gets wet, that hot orange will bleed through. And then all you want up front is a little. You notice something? I'll show you this again so that you recognize it. I do something with a whip finisher that a lot of people don't. And it comes from hard experience. A lot of guys like to tie the whip finish by putting it here. Okay. I put it in the valley of the tool. Turn it over and then go like that. So I get 2 turns and I'm running out of thread. I can pull all the thread I want doing that. I can't do that if it's on the side. So it's far better to get in the habit of putting it in what I call the valley of the tool rather than put it out on the edge. It looks fancy and a little faster, but if you run out of thread, you'll be glad you had the option. Anyone have any questions with that?
I do, Joe.
Oh,
The 2 questions. One on Fran Better's. I believe, does he have a book?
oh, yes, Tying Adirondack Flies. It's a very good book.
Okay. I think it's out of print. I'm having a hard time finding it.
It might very well be by now. Fran's gone a long time.
Okay.
He was a grouchy old cuss, and that's why I liked him so much.
And then real quick, my second question was similar to the last pattern. They make the snowshoe rabbit foot. They dye it in different colors.
Yes, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you another version.
Yeah, could we substitute that? And it sounds like the selling point on this fly is the hot fluorescent orange.
Well, if you're using cream, Matt,
yeah.
if you're using that,
okay.
then you definitely want this. You want these in a sulfur hatch. Okay. And you want to make them a little smaller. I make many of mine at 14. Believe it or not, and not a word of a lie, I was with Mike DiTomaso. Any of you know where the White House is? It's down on the Delaware West Branch. It's part of the whole complex there. They used to rent rooms out. And right across from the White House in the river were some lovely browns. I mean, 20 plus and smart as the day is long. I had one of these on a scud hook in a size 22. And I remember Mike turning to me and said, I can't believe you got that close to the fish. But I'm a firm believer in fishing like a heron. 1 step and wait. 1 step and wait. And I got probably within 25, 30 feet of that fish. I put that little bunny emerger over him, and he just came up, complete confidence, sucked it right in. And guys had been trying for him. And in fact, he got to be kind of a legend. Nobody seemed to be able to catch him. But a little cream bunny emerger, 22, and he went right for it. So I'd recommend this to you in various sizes. This one, believe it or not, will work during a March brown hatch. Why? I don't know. But I caught a lot of fish in a March brown hatch using just this cream, about a 12.
Hey, Joe, I just got a comment to share on the orange. One of my fishing mentors, his name is Wayne Templer. He's been to a number of our meetings. By the way, he's going to turn 100 this year.
Oh, good. God bless him.
And one of his most favorite flies is a Tom Thumb.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
And if for those of you on the call, the Tom Thumb is a very old pattern and arguably has similarities to this fly that others have pointed out.
Yeah, well, they used to tie them with a very fine deer hair,
Mhm.
okay, over for a tail, dub an orange pink body, pull the deer hair over the front, and let the tips stick out. So it had a tail here and a little bit of a tips out here, and that body pulled over. And Tom Thumb was a great fly. Oh man.
It still is, but
oof.
it,
Ask Mike Hogue.
yeah, with a an orange body, that thing is unbelievably.
Oh, I know. I know.
So I believe that maybe the orange is reflective of what sunlight looks like when it's going through that nymphal shot.
Yep. Gary was a firm. In fact, let me show you one just to I'll show you a couple of his tonight. I made this one especially bigger just so that you'd be able to see it better. Normally you make them in about an 18, but I'll put this one in the vise so you can see it. This is Gary LaFontaine's Halo Emerger. It's a little bit of marabou, a little bit of olives, foam. Oh, I had some here somewhere. Oh, here it is. This kind of very thin foam. I'll put it on the edge if I can.
Just like right at the jaws. Ew.
What's that called, Joe?
This is just packing foam.
No, what's the fly called?
Oh, it's called the Halo Emerger.
Ah, okay. I've tied them, but I've never seen one.
I have caught.
If that makes any sense.
Notice the orange. You need pumpkin orange deer hair, very fine, sticking out over the front. And you make two little balls of foam with a figure 8. I've caught browns on the Delaware when they wouldn't look at anything else. But the orange, I'm convinced, is what closes the sale.
Huh.
All right, let me show you one variation on the bunny emerger. And I think you'll like this one too. I'll dig out, again, I'll make them a little bigger so they're easier. Is that helpful? Easier to see? Sometimes it's, if you tie them on the size you should use, it makes it very hard for people to see.
To answer your question, Joe, it's really easy to see when TC zooms in on. Yeah, that's just unbelievably easy to see.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't want to make them in the size, but again, even in this size, this fly will work extremely well.
And by the way, TC, that focus is like smack home.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Okay. This is another blueing olive emerger. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use snowshoe rabbit. Oh, and by the way, you don't put any floatant on these things. You use them straight out. In fact, I'll tell you something I discovered purely by accident. I had a brown one day. I bet he came up 4 times, looked at it, went down. And I had to drift. I know I was watching. I didn't see any drag. I didn't see any problem. Up, down. So finally what I did is I circled. I got up in front of him. I drifted into his window. Now, many people don't know that, but a trout can only see about the size of a dinner plate when he's right on top. So if you fly a foot over there, it might as well be on Mars. And what I did that time, it was a cream bunny emerger, just the one I tied. As it drifted into his window, I pulled it under, and then it popped back up. And I've done that a number of times since. And I've caught a surprising number of fish doing that. So if they're really giving you a hard time, try popping it under just in front of them, and then let it pop to the top again. So the oil in the rabbit's foot is what makes it so buoyant. And that's why you don't really have to treat it. If you do have to treat it, I'd say either the frog's fanny or the loxa will do the job. So what I've done now is I've just cut enough to make an upright wing. I'm going to go back down like that. I'm going to pull the wing up like that. Then I'm going to make a few circles. Then I'm going to go to the back. So far, so good. Okay, now I'm going to take a little more of this. Not as much as I did before. I need a little more than that. This, by the way, is a wonderful. I found a wonderful fly in the Kahaka. If you fish the Kahaka a great deal. Okay, all I've done is taken maybe about a third of the wing volume, and I butt this right up against, and I go back. And once again, I lift up, I go over the shank and under the wing, and then I come back once or twice, and that will lock it. Nice and shaggy, huh? Now what I'll do, get a little bit of olive. Give it some body color. One way only. I always tell people, think that you're trying to use your fingers to melt the wax on the thread. It's far, far better to have tight dubbing than loose. You can control it so much more easily. And just go up like this, go around the wing, around the wing. I could use a pinch more. Finish out. And there you have a snowshoe emerger bluing olive style. Simple, huh?
Possibilities are endless, and that thing looks buggier than hell.
Yeah. The fish love this thing. I I can't say enough about it. If you see a blueing olive hatch, some drizzly, cloudy afternoon, about 2 o'clock, you'll see a raft of them coming down the Delaware. And the fish will key on this one just because of the shagginess, I think. But they hit it, and they hit it very, very well. So just remember, a bulge and no bubble emergers. You fish a regular dry fly, you might as well go home and read a book. It's not going to take it. So far, so good?
Yeah, great. Any questions for Joe? Anyone, please feel free to chime in if you have questions or comments.
Okay. Before I tie anymore, I made a list in that material I sent to you about some of the really good flies. I would put them in the top 10. Okay. And I've got to look at my time. Oh, look good. I was going to quit about 8:30, so I thought I'd save a little time to make sure you can see some of these others. Okay. But here goes. The fly you must have with you, especially if you're striking out and you have pocket water, you have a lot of riffles, stuff like that. That's called a stimulator. You do not want to be without this fly. In fact, if you fish enough, and if you fish with guides, and guides are striking out, you'll hear one say to the other, "You got any stimmies?" This will almost always produce a fish, especially in broken water. There's something about the profile and the way it bounces around, the little spot of color up in the front. But can't say enough about this fly. If you need a go-to fly, that's one of them. Okay, I got a bigger one here.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Hey, I just want to point out to everybody, you can find stimulators in a variety of color
Oh, yes.
combinations, and I was kind of surveying those colors. That one looks like that would be a perfect imitation of like a yellow stonefly.
Yep.
I like those colors.
That's what I think they take it for, quite frankly.
Yeah, so the rest of you wanted to pay attention to Joe's colors there.
This next one I'll show you, and again, I made it bigger than I normally would have. I can show you a smaller one, but I want you to see this fly. Jack Dennis showed me this fly 35 years ago. Okay, it's called the Quigley Cripple. When I first learned it from Jack, I tied 6. I went down on the Delaware River. I was fishing everything, beetles, ants. I mean, anything you could imagine. I could not raise a fish. I thought, well, Jack says great things about this. I put one on. It was a brown, it was lovely fish. It was about 17 inches. Just feeding regular. My first cast went way off to the right. Okay, and I thought, oh, that fish left his feeding lane, came over and smashed it like he hadn't eaten all week. All right. Long story short, I got to my 6th one. It was down to thread, and I said, I'm going home because I know I can't catch anything else. This is a spectacular fly. That's the big size. All you do is use some Antron for a shuck, an olive body, or you can change the color. Use coastal deer hair, okay, and then wrap a conventional hackle. What happens with this fly, I think, is the way it sits on the water is what closes the sail. It just kind of flops down, and about the only thing really poking up is the hackle and that little bit of deer hair protruding off the front. And I show you more of a regular size one. Yeah, something like this. You will catch fish with that fly anywhere. So never leave home without a Quigley cripple or 10 in your box. This one, I'm going to show you a book. And the book has been reprinted. Okay. It's called Chauncey Lively's Fly Box. It's got great patterns. Chauncey was never given the kind of acclaim and credit he deserved. He was a magnificent tyer and fisherman. Okay. But the whole book, the whole damn book is worth buying just for this. This is called Chauncey Lively's Horsefly. I'll be the first to admit it looks like a sack of you-know-what. Okay. That will catch fish on Cayuta Creek and on the Jenny when you cannot get them with anything else. And all it is black deer hair tied almost like a crow beetle, folded back on itself. You put like a darning needle in there and fold it back so the hair splays out. And then on the bottom, you tie some little legs. Okay. You know, I promise you. In fact, except maybe for the foam beetle that we did in the beginner's class and the crow beetle, this is the only thing I use. Anytime there's beetles around, they will hit this one. And one last small one, and then we'll go back to tying. I'll put this in the vise so you can see it. This is called a jacid. Now, you'll notice the wing is at an angle. Vince Marinaro, the guy who invented this, always believed the wing should be flat. And he was right about, in my experience, 80% of the time. But I've discovered that sometimes if you cant the wing up, you can see it much more easily. And for some reason, I've actually fished jacids on Owego Creek. They floated right down, flat wing, right past the fish, nothing. As soon as you went to the canted wing, they'd take it. Now, I have no idea why. I think it imitates a leaf hopper. Now, the top of this fly is real jungle cock. You might not want to pay the amount of money. A good jungle cock skin will cost you $90 or $100. Okay. If you take a starling feather, okay, and get a little bit of yellow craft paint and put the slightest tiny drop on the starling feather, you can use that as a top instead of a jungle cock, and the fish don't seem to pay any attention. So it's a lot cheaper. I'm into jungle cock because I tie a lot of salmon flies, but there are people who aren't, just because of the expense. And maybe I'll show you one other, and then we'll go back to this fly. Is a bicolor parachute. It's a little shaggy. It's been in the box a while. Okay. It's claret deer hair, yellow thread wound up, wound back, Isonychia doubling, bicolor. This is snowshoe rabbit for the wing, and then a parachute hackle of ginger. Yellow thread. This will, Carol and I went down on the beaver kill one day, and it was toward the end of summer. And we saw some of these bicolors. They hatch pretty late in the year. They'll go right through July and August. And I said, Carol, try this just for the hell of it. Bing, she hit a fish. Bing, she hit a fish. This poor guy, he comes over, he says, what the hell do you use? She showed him this. He said, Jesus. He holds up a little 24 blueing olives. He says, I've been trying to catch them all day on this. And he said, I watched you just nail 3. But this is a meat and potatoes fly. It's not really that hard to tie. But when bicolors are around, they have like a purplish cast to them. And they got these little legs with tips that are of light color. They sometimes refer to them as the, what do they call it? The white gloved howdy. They're a cute little fly. They got these colored tips on the ends of their legs. But if you want to catch fish, that parachute bicolor is almost a sure thing. All right, want to go back to tying? Let's do that. Oh, I've got a little time here. Let me see what I have. Oh, well, I did want to tell you about a couple of things that you should know about. I have them here somewhere. I don't know what I did with them. The stone flies.
Yeah.
I don't know what I got here.
One.
I wanted to tell you about this because it's really something you should know about. Right now, if you want to catch some nice big rainbow trout, they get tired of eggs after a bit. I'm convinced of it. Okay. And lots of experience fishing for them has just got me to believe that. The black stonefly will just about always catch a fish. Problem is getting that wing case, because that's a strike trigger. That is something they definitely look for. Okay. How do you get it without the thing splitting and tearing apart? And the answer is you definitely have to have this in your arsenal. Okay. It's called Krylon Clear Finish. Okay. Low odor, clear finish. You can get it at any craft store. I think Agway carries it as well. What you do with it, this is a turkey feather, okay? Let me just flip. See that? The way it got like that is I held the Krylon about maybe 6-8 inches away outside. Don't do this inside. You'll think you're on an LSD trip. It's really bad. It's really bad for you. Just spray from about this distance. Don't overdo it. Spray the other side. Stick it in the ground or tape it to something. And just let the wind blow over it for, half an hour or so. And most of the odor and that will be gone and it will dry. And when it dries, it's you can see that. Okay. You can take it and it won't split and it won't break. And so when you're tying a stonefly like that, you can lay it down, fold it, dub it, take the next stretch, fold it, put a little needle in there, fold it, tie it down, and you get that double wing case. If you like Letort crickets, I'll tie one of those for you tonight. If you like a Letort cricket, you have to put a body down that lies flat against the shank. And if you use just a regular crow feather or any kind of a dark feather without treating it, it'll split apart after the first fish or two, and all you'll have is a shaggy mess. Not that it won't work, but you won't be able to put it back in your box and fish with it again for a while. So really invest in this. The Krylon is well worth. It's not that expensive. It might be $10 for. I've had this container now for probably 5 years, and it's still almost full. So something you definitely want to buy. All right. Let me show you another. I'm not going to tie the black cricket because it's good, it works, okay? But the one I tie generally works longer and better. So I thought I'd share that with you if I could. Okay, let me find the cricket stuff. Here we are. Notice sprayed with a little retort cricket. But these feathers are been so used that I'm reluctant at this point to tie with them. I've got a hook. Yeah, that's the size we want. Nope, I think that's all I need. Just need a little dubbing and I can find that when I need it. There we go. Okay. All right, we'll put a number 6 curved shank. Reason for that is it's a meat and potatoes fly. And so you want to give the fish something that he wants to eat. You can tie them smaller and they work quite well. But I find the bigger ones, and by the way, that's a good trick to remember. If you're fishing and the fish are uptaking and they're pushing your flies out of the way to get to the real ones, you know that it's going to be a waste of time to continue doing that. But sometimes what you can do, and it can really pay off, it's something we call a hatch breaker. Okay. Take something like a big fat beetle or something like this cricket or even a streamer, okay, and toss it out there with a plop. And you'll be surprised how many times, even if fish have blueing olives or whatever on their mind, they see that strawberry shortcake going by and they decide, a little variety won't hurt. And they'll very often take a terrestrial pattern, or if you swim a streamer near where they're feeding, they think the little fish is trying to get into their rice bowl, and they don't really like that either. So, okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to just take a piece of this turkey that's been treated. I'm going to cut it. And cut it. And cut it. Have the good side facing up. And lay it right on top, like that. Oh, goodness. That one didn't work. Try another one. Yeah, this is better up here.
What are you looking for when you're pulling out turkey barbs, Joe?
When I'm doing what?
When you're selecting barbs for this fly, like what's a good section to you?
Almost everything along a wild turkey's tail. Well, the cinnamon ones are very good. The oak turkey, they're called. Okay, but you can take one like this wide, all right, and fold it. Sometimes that'll reinforce it a little. Normally you don't have to, but I do it just for the sake of it. Get it like that. I lay it flat. You want some loose turns first. So it lays just over the top of the body. Like that. Okay. Again, we'll go back to my working close tool. Secure that with a few more wraps. It's getting out of kilter. All right. This is a very simple slide. Well worth. Here, that's what I want. No, I didn't know that. Well, here's this is the stuff I want. Yeah. You can do an L care too if you'd like. I don't know. This is comparadon. Okay. Comparadon deer hair. Right. The nice thing, if you use the smaller sizes, is you really don't have to bother much with measuring or stacking them. The only thing you have to do is get the underfur out. And that's another reason to buy one of these. You got a little comb in there. And believe it or not, that comb makes all the difference in terms of getting the underfur to behave. We don't want to overdo this. We want enough to extend down. We'll lay that on top. Make a loose wrap, and then a second wrap, and then put it through at an angle. Okay. We can even add a little more if we want to. But when the fish looks up, it gets that broad wing, and it gets the appearance of wings and the appearance of legs in the front, which is where the legs normally are. It's a quick fly to tie, and you don't you can actually go right over that. Oops, knew that would happen. That's why we have a spare vise or a spare bobbin. No, let me get that cut out. Pull that back. Now you get the idea. That's essentially what it is. I use close in. Pick it all up. It's a rough one. This one I would do better, but I want to start over. When you're finished, you have the idea. Fish looks up, gets the shape of the wing, shape of the body. You make a Latour copper the same way. Okay, you just lay a longer section of cinnamon turkey feather, and again, treat it with a floatant, or you won't have it last very long. Okay.
805 or
Yeah. I'm going to sneak one more in while we have this hair out. There's a pattern called a CDC and elk. It's basically an offshoot of a elk hair caddis. But I wanted to show it to you. Oops, where's my, here we go. Another thing you buy at the pharmacy. I had an extra bobbin of olive somewhere, but I don't know how I did with it. But these floss threaders, if you don't know about, you can get them in any pharmacy or pharmacy section of any department store. And one box will last you for years and years. But I wanted to show you this only because many people who like, and I like the elk hair caddis an awful lot. It's a great searching pattern. But many people don't know about this one. Oh, let me find that damn thread. Yeah, that light is throwing me off. That's okay. I think we're all right now.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, we're okay.
Yeah.
Many people who know about the elk hair caddis don't know about this one. And it's a wonderful fly. And it looks like a bedraggled mess. And that's exactly how it should look for best results. I'll use the starker so you'll see it better, I think. Okay, I want to find a CDC feather that kind of looks like that. Okay, that work? Yeah. Now what I'm going to do with it, actually I have two here. I don't need two. One will do. Okay, what I'm going to do with this feather is I'm just going to tie it to the top of the shank with 2 or 3 loose wraps. That's all. And then pull back like that. Okay. And this is going to be my body. And you only get 3 or 4 or 5 wraps. And all of a sudden, you have hackle. And that too is exactly what you want. And like the Gartside streamer, when you're making it, it looks like hell. But as soon as you start to fish it, you will become a believer. This is a perfect fly for still pools or ponds where the trout are cruising. Okay. Again, we're just going to go back to this. Oops, got it the wrong way. I have a hell of a time with this.
Oh yeah, just bring it back to the hook.
Yes. It's just comparadon hair. Okay. It's supposed to be elk, but I won't tell if you don't. It works just as well. Fish don't seem to mind one bit. I cut a nice batch of it off. And I take my little comb. I take that and do that. I'm going to lay it on top. What I'm going to do is make 2 kind of loose wraps and then tighten. And then I'm going to weave it, wiggle waggle through the head. And I'm going to push the head back and make the whip finish. And we're done.
Joe, is the wiggle waggle to give it that squirrely look, or is it to help lock it down?
Oh, that's basically to lock it down.
Okay.
It gives it a little spread. too,
Yeah.
Okay. And if you get some that are too outlandish, you just pinch and pull. It is a shaggy mess.
Yeah.
The fish love it. The fish absolutely love this fly. It's called a CDC in elk. And I think the paradigm actually works a little better. The elk is a bit stiffer. So far, so good. Questions?
Great.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're still out there.
We're here.
I
Hey,
don't know.
I just wanted to react there to TC's question about that tactic of wiggling through those fibers.
Oh, yes.
Also, that's really helpful, so it doesn't catch in those deer hair, and that tactic is very helpful in a lot of different fly tying scenarios.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you one right now. If we have enough time, I think I'll make an elk hair caddis. How's that sound?
Great.
That's again, an awful good fly. I'll make it a little big so you can see it. I've got a 12 3X long here. I think that'll do it.
No need to worry about the time there, Joe. It's funny, last week, Eastern Waters Council had Brad Buzzy do a webinar. He's a saltwater tyer out in New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
The scheduled time was an hour. He went 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh, geez.
It was really cool. He just like, he didn't run out of things to say.
Oh, I can't go that long, but I'll do my best. I'll share what I do with an elk hair caddis. Again, I leave a bit of a red zone up there of bare metal, so I'll have some time to work around the head. Now, caddis, you can fish any number of ways. You can fish them dead drift, but I know you'll want to call security and tell them to bring ropes and a net. But if you really want to have fun fishing caddis, you got to learn to skitter them. Okay. Now, the only place this will work is in really foamy, bubbly water with rocks on the bottom. So if you held a pennant in a stream with 3 flags on it, the top one would be going like this. The middle one would be doing this. And the bottom one would be barely moving. The current at the bottom is only 1/3 as fast as here or up in here. So if the fish are in the rocks or in front of a rock, so many people don't know that in hydraulics, as rushing water hits a big rock, it separates and it creates like a vacuum here. And the fish can hold in that vacuum because they don't have to work very hard. And there's a rule, there aren't many things you can say about trout that are always true. This one is, the big trout always gets the best seat in the restaurant. And so the big trout will be in front of that rock where everybody looks for the ones behind. Those are the junior members of the club. The big guy will be in the front of the rock. And if you can get a fly past them, okay, he sees it first and he'll take it because he either takes it or loses it in fast water. Skittering is something entirely different. What you do in skittering is you get upstream of a very fast riffle. You throw your caddis imitation, and then you start popping it, having it jump and hop, jump and hop, jump and hop. Absolutely true story. I had a former student, international student, his name was Bernard Scherbel. I guess I was the only guy in the world who could get away with calling him Bernie. And he was from Austria. And he took the fly tying class I taught when I first taught it. Absolutely fell in love with it. And Bernie went on to Cornell, and now he got a PhD at the University of Chicago in philosophy of all things. And I could have totally lost track of him now. I haven't heard from him in many, many years. But we were fishing 9 Mile Creek. And I said, Bernie, have you ever skittered caddis? And I described it to him. We make it bounce and pop and bounce and pop and bounce. He looks at me and says, show me, Cambridge. Okay. Then I start pop, 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 pop. Pretty soon, nice fish, 15, 16 inches. He looks at me and says, I thought you were sending me on what you call a snipe hunt. I said, no, Bernie, it's a good way to fish. Oh, I see that, right? So he caught one right after that. He said, we keep the next 2. And I said, Bernie, I don't keep fish. He said, we keep 2 tonight. I will make a meal for you. All right. So we kept 2. They were nice fish. They were probably 15, 16 inches. We get home. He said, I own the kitchen. You go sit, drink a whiskey. I'm sitting there and have a whiskey, and I smell, all kinds of cooking going on. I don't know what the hell it is. And he's chopping celery, and then he's chopping shallots, and then he's chopping parsley, and then he's got sage, all right? And he's got a pot of boiling water. I said, Bernie, what the hell are you doing? He says, drink your whiskey, Cambridge. I will take care of the cooking. He brings these fish out. If you've never seen this, I'm not making it up. They were cooked, boiled in vinegar, and they were blue. I mean, not this blue. I mean, really blue, with beautiful spots all standing out. And he said, we do this in Austria. We do it in Bavaria. The French, in the French Alps, they call it la truite bleue, the blue trout. It is fabulous. If you ever see it, he said, in the inns where we fish, you carry a bucket with water in it. And the fish you were going to have for dinner, you keep alive, and you bring them, literally carry them to the chef. And then they fix them using this vinegar, boiled in vinegar and herbs recipe. It's wonderful. If you've never had it, they serve it hot with like a hollandaise or a champagne sauce. And it's also wonderful cold. And I don't eat much, and I don't kill fish, excuse me, trout at least. But if you ever have an opportunity and you see it on the menu, blue trout, you won't believe your eyes. The thing, they're the color of a Chevrolet. It's an amazing thing to see. But oh, are they good? They're just delicious. All right, let me show you how I make the elk-hair caddis that I make. It's I'm going to use that technique that Kirk was talking about. First thing we'll do is we'll get some fine gold wire. Okay. This is basically Al Troth's pattern. Al guide out in the West, and he was the one that, the trick to this though, is use more wire than you think you need. Okay, for a reason I'll show you. So we're going to go up here a little ways, and then we're going to tie the wire in on the bottom. And we're going to take it back almost to the end. Stick it out like that. Make 1, make 2, make 3, and then go forward. Okay. Now, I've got to find my up here. Yes, okay. That's what I need. That's what I need. if you don't know about Charlie Collins, Charlie has some of the best hackle you could ever wish for. It's well worth buying a neck or two from him. I probably have 6 or 8 kind of look like that. It's a grade 1 grizzly hackle. Okay, the quality in these feathers is spectacular, especially if you tie small. You'll get very frustrated tying if you don't have good material. Okay, what I try to do when I make an elk hair caddis is try to pick a feather with bar reels that are a little smaller. They're almost maybe to the width of the gap, but no more than that. And another little trick whenever you're handling dry fly hackle, okay? Many guys don't know this. I'll put it in front so you can see. When you're handling dry fly hackle, okay, always cut some teeth. If I could show you that up close.
Yeah.
You see those little teeth? That's what's going to really grab the hackle or the shank and keep it from pulling loose. If you just tie it in by the bare stem many times, the feather will come loose. What I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to lay it up on the front like this and tie it in. So most of you have heard about palmering hackle, and that's what we're going to do, only we're going to palmer in reverse.
Hang on a second, I just lost the focus. I'm gonna reset it for a second. Hold up a second.
There we go.
Go.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, let's go with brown this time. This is Australian possum. I like Australian possum a great deal. It's good stuff to work with. Easy to work with, easy to dub. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go behind the gold wire 2 or 3 turns. And then I'm going to come forward. You need a smidgen more. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse. Oh, beautiful. Talk about not pulling out, huh? Oh, here's what happened. I see. Oh, hackle stem broke. All right, let me see. I can still probably save it and do it. Yeah, I think we can still do it. Get this hackle feather. You want to bring it back with spaced turns. Need it up a little higher. Okay, that's good. Now I take the gold wire. This is why you have to have longer than you think. You make a couple of turns of that gold wire. Nice tight turns. Now we can cut this guy loose. We don't need him for a while. Now we're going to wiggle waggle. See how we avoid trapping many of those fibers just by letting the wire slip in between in the spaces.
Uh-huh. Are you counter wrapping that?
Yep.
Joe?
Oh, yeah, I always counter wrap. You don't gain anything by wrapping in the same
Right.
direction as you did your dubbing. Okay. When we get to about there, we secure the wire. But a tip in securing wire is you always fold it back on itself, or it won't stay in place. Now, we need my chief alternative to a good scissors. We go in there and snip it. Then we take the scissors and we go in there and snip that. And who would have guessed that there was ever... Well, what I do then is I lay this flat and cut. And what we have left, this is bleached elk. I like it only because you can see it so easily. We snip that down. Bottom. Yeah. Brush out. I can't emphasize too much. See how much that takes that you would have missed? And if you don't get that underfur out, especially if you're spinning, I won't have time to do much more, but I am going to demonstrate something because I have a toy that I think you're going to love if you haven't seen it before. Okay, that's about right. Let me look and see. Yeah, I don't want to back that far. So I snip it off about there. Lay it on. Make one. And the second one, I start to tighten. And then we wiggle waggle. And wiggle waggle. And wiggle waggle. We get our head. I could have used more. This is a very buoyant fly, and it will pop, pop and pop. Okay, you can fish it dead, you can pop it. You can catch a lot of fish with an elk hair. Now, I'm going to show you one more thing while we have time. I meant to do a couple more like the clink hammer and that, but I just got waylaid. Oh, by the way, I started to use this stuff and I love it. Barry and Kathy Beck have just started to distribute it. It's called Polyfluff. Great, great stuff. They also
Joe,
have,
tell us more about that. What is it?
okay, what it is essentially, if you want to make posts on a clink hammer
Yeah.
or posts on a parachute Adams, this is the stuff. Very easy to handle and work with. It's also great for spinner wings. If you tie trico spinners, it's really worth having. I just started using it and I've fallen in love with it. And it comes in various shades. You can actually get it in black and tan and brown and olive. And you can put a clump on the shank with a couple of little rubber legs. Barry Beck sent me a couple of samples. And man, it's easy stuff to work with, but very, very good. And these guys, the microfivets, but they have new ones that are super fine. Yeah, I had them here somewhere. I know. There we are. These are super fine.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of glare on that, but
Oh, are you? Okay.
yeah,
I don't know if you can see it. There we are.
yeah.
Yeah. These are, they actually refer to them as the super thin microfivet tails. And that's another thing. I think Mike Hogue is carrying it. I think he started using it and he became a believer as well. And Barry and Kathy sent me some and said, try this stuff, see what you think of it. And
Yeah.
it's damn good, damn good. But I don't know if maybe you guys know about this stuff already. Any of you spin deer hair? Like making muddler heads or?
Sure.
Okay. Let me just for the hell of it, I want to show you a new toy I have. I used to do it the old fashioned way, and I got cut enough times to finally figure out that there was an easier way to do this. I'll just take a second to show you, but I think you'll be impressed. All right, all I want is, I'll take one of these 12 hooks. I'm not going to make anything. I'm just going to show you a technique. I'm going to put this in a vise. Put some black thread on it. These are wonderful, like if you were making bass bugs. You can change the color of the hair, of course, if you want to get fancy. But I'm just going to use some plain black deer hair. And whenever you spin deer hair, you've got to get rid of the understuff or it doesn't behave. This is a trick Jack Outside taught me some years ago, many years ago now, but when you're spinning deer hair, almost all the books show it with the butts to the front. Jack always used to say butts to the back. Leave the tips for the front. Spin it with the butts to the back because the butts have a little more resiliency and a little more strength. And what he used to do is take it like this, one turn, slightly two, and then pull down and let it spin. You know? Just like New York. Push it back a little bit. I'll spin a little more and then I'll show you what I'm really trying to do with this. Again, butts to the back. Take about 2 turns. One, tighten. And the hair will spin. I know you're saying to yourself, where is this going? There's a method in my madness. Every time I do this now, I think of Jack. He would literally spend 5 minutes once, pull and tighten, let it spin, and compress it. This will be enough to illustrate what I'm talking about. So you'd have this, let's say it's up on the head or up near the head. Just put it here for now. Okay. You get the scissors out. He'd be he would go nuts if he saw this new toy. Stone Foam makes it. It's about 35 bucks. It's the best 35 bucks you'll ever spend. A lot of guys like to live dangerously. And so they just take a double-edged razor blade and hold it between their thumb and forefinger and do this. Sooner or later, you're going to get cut, and you're probably going to get cut very badly because those razors are sharp and you're moving in at an angle. But you want to see something neat. Okay, I haven't even tied this off, but it should work. Watch this. You want a tight head on the muddler? You can take this thing right down to the bare bones. Isn't that neat? Any of you use this?
Looks crazy sharp.
Huh?
Looks crazy sharp, the
Oh,
razor.
that's exactly why I used to do it the old-fashioned way. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And the one thing you want to do with this tool always is it's got to be shielded. You don't want that bare blade exposed. It always goes back in the package again. And you can leave it on the counter and you don't have to worry about cutting yourself. But if you want to make nice, tight, I just rushed, but if you want to make nice, tight deer hair heads, that's the stuff to use. I think, again, I think it goes about $35. If you cut yourself, it's worth stitches that you'll have to pay for to get it and prevent it. That old business about prevention beats response. One last thing.
Where'd you find that tool, Joe?
Huh?
Where'd you find that tool? Where do you get that tool?
I think, I want to say, I think Mike might carry them. I think I got this one at Feathercraft down in Missouri, but I think Mike Hogue carries them. They really are worth it if you do a lot of deer hair trimming. They're definitely worth your time. All right, let me do one. I'll do one last little trick for you to help you along. I'm trying to key this to people that are, you know, tying but not completely at a point where they're confident about it. I want to show you this only because it's kind of neat. If you've ever worked with microfibets or tailing material and you want to make like a pontoon, you want them to splay out, okay? It drives people nuts trying to tie one on one side and one on the other, or tie a bump of thread in the middle and then go back. Something that works like a charm. Watch it move tonight, but it will normally. Because all you do is when you take that spare thread, make a loop with it, like that. Okay. What I do is I put a hat pin in there to keep it open, but we'll see if it works without it. Without the hat pin. Hat pin works better. But now here are the tailing materials, and people go nuts sometimes trying to get them to splay out. the way you want them to. I'll just cut it. Take that loop and you pull it through. Huh? Just like New York, huh? I exaggerated just to show you, but it will really, with trico tails and that, it'll really make your life so much easier. So it's just a good thing to know. All right. Let me show you a few more flies. I wanted to tie this one tonight. I almost hesitate to show it to you, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Let me find a better one there. Yeah. This is a book, two of them that you don't want to be without. Okay. Jay Nichols is the author of it, or the editor, actually, Tying Dry Flies. It is wonderful. It's got the CDC and elk. It's got all the retort hoppers. It's got terrestrials. It's got some standard Catskill dries. If you want one book that'll tell you, you can see on the back the variety of flies there. If you want to get a book, and it's out, it's only 5 years old maybe, so it still should be in print and available. The other one, I'm not sure anymore if it's still in print. I doubt it. But this one by Gary LaFontaine. Okay. It's called Trout Flies Proven Patterns. Okay. And I had the good fortune to know Gary. I tied with him a few times. We were supposed to go fishing one day, but we got rained out. And as we were tying, he showed me this concoction. I mean, it's a concoction. Let me get this out of the vise. Right. You ready for this? It's called the Airhead. When Gary showed me that, I said, "Have you switched drug dealers?" And he looked, he says, "I know, everybody." He said, "My students used to think I was playing a joke on them." But he said, "We did a lot of underwater scuba observations." And he said, "We saw that many of the flies that came down, especially caddis, had like a bubble of light around them, just from what the little waves and the riffles were doing." And he said, "Just for the hell of it." And what it is just the same closed cell foam. I can show you here. All right. It comes in sheets like this. You can get it from Gary's, still has a company going out in Red Lodge, Montana. But you take a strand of it like this, you cut about 4 or 5 pieces, you put a little dove body, you put some elk hair or deer hair pointing to the back, just as kind of a little bit of a wing. Okay. Nothing fancy. Let's bring it up and see if we can. You can see it's just got like a little bit of a wing on it. And then you tie 4 or 5 of these strips forward. Okay. And when they're all dangling off the end, you fold them all back so you have like a little bullet head. And then you snip the individual ones, but you don't want to cut them too close. You want them to kind of bounce around. And I have a few here that just to show you. This one might be a better example. It's tied a little bigger.
Okay.
See that one? I know. When you look at it, you laugh. But you put that down a stretch of fast water, and you will be amazed. And I'm going to share a very secret pattern with you last. You can use my toy for this, but you have to be very careful. This is one of the best summer flies I know. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Almost always it's in a 14. It's magical in a 14. Right? And what you do is you get some coastal deer hair, something fine, and one good high quality grizzly hackle. And you spin a little smidgen of black deer hair. You put the grizzly hackle in, and then you keep working the deer hair, spinning it up the body. You got to clip it carefully. And then you palmer the grizzly through it. Tie it off and you're done. I think they take it for a house fly. It sits strangely on the water, just kind of up like that. But you get a summer day on the Delaware River and the fish are just not being cooperative. This is called a kissel bug, Kissel. I doubt you'll find it anywhere. It's an old Catskill pattern. I would bet you it goes back to the 20s. But if you want to catch fish on a hot summer day, bright summer day, you get a kissel bug, you put it on, and if there's a trout around, he'll come up and hit it. I don't know what it is about it, but it's one of the best flies I know for fishing in the summer. I don't know if I have anything else. Oh yeah, one here. This is one you should know about too. And if I have one, yeah, I do. I was looking to save one other thing for you. Once again, when you see bubbles or no bubbles and bulges, this is a wonderful little fly. Very simple to tie. Just an olive body, okay, and coastal deer hair. You can fork it if you want to, or you can tie it straight. It's called a deer hair emerger. What happens when you cast it, the bottom sinks, and the only thing you treat this up here with floatant, and it'll just hang in the film exactly the way an emerger does when it's trying to get out. And this is an awful good go-to fly too. If you're having trouble with them, they just won't cooperate. I don't know if I have anything else I didn't show you. Oh yes, one last one. No one should be without this fly. It's called the humpy, or the goofus bug. It's got some moose body hair, some deer hair. You tie it in by the butts, and then you fold it over the front, and then you split the hair apart to make the wings. And then you use a grizzly and a brown hackle in combination. And we call this a searching fly. When you don't know what's going on, but you think there's fish around, just put it up in a riffle and let it bounce its way down. I think they take it for an aquatic moth, but I don't think anybody really knows why trout hit flies. There's been a lot of ink spilled on it, but I don't think anybody knows for sure. Yeah. Well, I guess we've had enough. Or
Yeah. Thank you very much, Joe. Great stuff.
oh, hey,
Yeah.
I'm glad I
Wonderful.
I wanted to, as I say, show you the clink hammer or something. We'll do that another time. That's a wonderful, wonderful fly. I think, yeah, I've got one here just to show you. This is the one that's tied with that poly fluff. And again, it's designed so it hangs down under the surface, and just the parachute hackle and the poly fluff stick up like a post. And it looks, again, like something that's stuck trying to get through that surface tension. It's called a clink hammer. The only thing you really need to tie it, I don't know any better hooks than these. Orbis makes one they call the clink hammer hook. And you can tie it from 12 down to 18, even 20. But if you can get Orbis clink hammer hooks, that's the stuff you need to tie it. And that little bit of that post, whatever Barry calls it here, poly fluff. Okay, wonderful stuff for a wing. It's very bright. It's very easy to see, even from a long distance.
Joe, I just wanted to add one comment, and you spoke about him earlier, was Collins Hackle. And for folks online, Collins, like Joe mentioned, he is nationally known and even internationally known and revered amongst fly tyers.
Mhm.
And for those, he's a supplier to many fly tying shops in North America. And he just so happens to be in our backyard here in Pine City, New York.
Mhm.
So if for those in the Amara Corning area, if you are interested in looking at Collins Hackle, he does have a website. It's a little outdated with not many frills. He's not really a tech guy, but if you're in the market for some nice capes, I would suggest giving Charlie a call and introduce yourself and establish a relationship with him if you pursue this as a hobby. Because once you're in with him, he'll invite you up. Once he has colors available, he'll call you. He's just someone really good to have a relationship with, and I can't say enough that his quality of his product is outstanding. So
You know, I actually got some pre-hackle from him, so you know we go back a ways.
yeah.
Charlie's a great guy. Tell him you know me, but he shouldn't hold that against you.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Joe. Does
Oh,
anyone
no,
have any last minute questions for Joe or comments, or let me take the spotlight off here so we can see everyone?
Naylor, you finished that whiskey yet, or?
Yeah, I got one comment for Joe. Joe, I went to the Adirondacks. My son has got a lake house up there, invited me up for Father's Day for 6 days. He had a friend that fishes the Roscoe, not a professional tyer, but average fly fisherman. So he went in, it was really warm that day. We went up into the Roscoe area, a lot of traffic, a lot of people going back and forth, but we got down in the stream part, very difficult fishing. As a matter of fact, it was too hard for me. I managed to fall in, ruin my phone, and get my wallet wet.
Oh, geez.
I did cool off though. So we got fishing later on. He took us down to a place called Wilmington, and there was a pond or the DEC probably put it in. It was a dam. It was quite wide, and it was a beautiful place. And he caught 3 trout. There was trout working a little bit, and he caught him on an alder fly that Fran Betters had
Oh, yes.
tied.
Yeah.
So he showed it to me. Very simple. I think it was a olive chenille body with a bear hair wing
Yeah.
over top. That's all it was.
Yep.
And I said, these trout were on top for something. Why did they hit that alder fly? It was like he cast it out, let it sink, sort of strip it back in. And he was catching them on the alder fly, but they weren't taking any. So anyway, I wondered if you were familiar with the alder fly.
Oh, I fished alders. In fact, in Britain, they're considered like the must have if you fish any of their lakes or reservoirs. Part of the reason is, and a lot of people don't notice if they're fishing a pond or still water. Watch the wind. You'll be amazed how in a pond, the wind will pile all the food up.
Oh, yeah.
And the
On
fish,
one bank.
you're damn right. And the fish know it. And they'll all hang out right down there,
Right.
waiting for the wind. And alder flies are especially notorious for getting blown into the surface of a reservoir. And oh, in Britain, that's that's like one of the go-to flies for any kind of fishing in still water.
Yeah, now he's got a cottage on a lake and he fishes that lake, but he also used that in the Roscoe stream that night, and he was the only one that was catching a fish.
Yep, yep.
So I've thought about tying it, but I haven't looked it up. So simple enough to tie.
Hey,
No tail, no wing.
one of some of the simplest flies are the best ones. I've said that for many years. The guys like Eric tie very extravagant flies for the wall, we call it, putting them under glass and hanging them up. But
Right.
I'm the other way. I just tie flies for catching fish.
Well, Joe, one other comment. I always enjoy seeing you tie and listen to you talk, and it's enjoyable. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're most welcome, Dick. I'm glad to see you again.
Good to see you, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Joe.
Hey,
A voice from South Carolina.
I haven't seen you since Moby Dick was a minnow. Where you been, son?
Good to see you.
Oh yeah, same here.
Okay, well, it's 9 o'clock. It's getting close to my bedtime. So
Yeah, me too.
I'm gonna conclude the meeting and thank you again so much, Joe, for
Oh, you're welcome.
preparing and taking the time out of your schedule for doing this for us. And I'll be emailing you more on some steelhead flies.
Oh, yes,
So-
yes.
Hey, have a
Thanks
nice
a lot,
night.
Joe.
Have a nice night, everyone.
Thanks, Matt, for organizing.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joe.
Matt.
Hey,
Bye,
how are you?
John.
Thanks, TC.
Yeah, thank you, TC. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Our tech man.
Uh-oh.